All right, welcome back to the Built on Air podcast. We are in season 25, episode 4, halfway through the season. Good to be back with you, Camille and Ali, as always. And today we're going to have a fun show. We're going to get into some AI, some MCP, and all sorts of acronyms that we're going to be talking about today. Camille's going to lead the discussion. But before that, there have been some updates that we can highlight. I noticed two things. Two updates came out. One of them was the Slack integration, being able to ask Airtable questions directly from Slack. So you can connect your. I assume it just uses the MCP from a Slack client and enables you to interact with it. So that's kind of cool. Either of you played with that?
Nope, I haven't yet.
Yeah, I might need to set that up. We could do that in our Built on Air Slack. Yeah. And the other one that's really cool that we've been kind of hinting at is automations are now available through the MCP environment. So, and at first I thought it was just going to be a read only, so you could read, but you can actually create automations, which I believe we're going to be doing today. So that's kind of more, because can you, on the interfaces, can you create interfaces through the MCP or just read them?
You can.
You can create them. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
So what I'm about to go over was 100% done by Claude. I have not made any adjustments to it, and I'll talk about where it got stuck.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah, so limitations on this endpoint. I know it can't handle scripting steps. Is that the only one? Can it handle all the rest?
It says it has limited support for anything that's not listed in its announcement, but it does have like vague support for it. What does that mean? I don't know. It's fairly robust. It can't turn on automations or publish changes to an automation that's already on. So it'll make edits and then you have to go into Airtable to publish. It can delete an automation that is already off. And yeah, it has pretty good support for native Airtable triggers with the exception of webhook. And the actions you're probably using in an automation other than script, it can handle.
Awesome. Interesting. So it can do, it can do conditional and repeating groups. Very cool. All right. So that's pretty powerful. So you can start to automate automations and things of that nature. So very cool. And I think those are the latest updates. So with that, let's dig in. We'll see a live example of this automation creation. So Camille, let me get to your screen. Here we go.
So first things first, Airtable's updated its developer docs, and things are, I don't know, they're a bit more flashy. With that, the agentic tools section, which is where the MCP and all of its tools is described, is much lengthier than it was before, which is a good thing. And then the other types of developer documentation was updated as well. You may notice that data layer extensions is not visible here. Once again, Airtable chooses to quietly deprecate that feature. That's fine, I guess. Interface extensions are still there. Today we're talking about MCP. So I would recommend everyone look at the tools section because it will say exactly what the MCP can now do. So I gave it a pretty basic example. In my Airtable universe, I have a meal planner and recipe repository base, and I wanted to see how much of it Claude could build from scratch. So unfortunately, I don't have the original prompt with me, but everything you see before you was generated through 2 to 3 prompts. And like I said before, I'll walk through what it wasn't able to do and how it differed from how I originally designed this idea of having a meal planner that allowed you to have to increase the yield you're doing. For example, if the recipe is for 4, but you're cooking for 8, double all of your ingredients and then have that be reflected in your shopping list. So it was able to pull together a pretty good schema overall, I would say. Again, different from how I would do it, but if it works, it works. General ideas: you need a place to see your recipes. Every recipe includes ingredients. Those ingredients need to have certain quantities. So that's where this comes into play, recipe ingredients. Your meals could be a combination of one or more different recipes, and it could also be leftovers of a previously cooked meal. Meal recipes is the junction table that connects recipes to meals. And then shopping list is a whole separate table that pulls from meal recipes and then basically adds up what the total number of each ingredient that you would need based on the meals you're going to have in that coming week. As we go along, you'll notice that it has provided descriptions on many things that you would want a description for. So every table, it's put one, and then some of the more important fields also got descriptions as they were being created. It only created one automation based on the original prompt I gave it. This is to generate that shopping list. So when that junction table, when I've said I'm making this recipe for this meal, that's the trigger. It's basically going to find all of those ingredients and then add them to the shopping list. This is a complete departure from how I originally designed this when I was building it for myself. But again, it works, so it's fine. Like I said before, it can't turn automations on. That is something a person would have to do, so I'm going to do that. You'll notice it also added the description to the automation, which is very helpful. And what I've noticed is that it also does it for the individual steps, which nice. And then I had it build some interfaces. So it was perfectly able to build these interfaces. And again, my prompt was very bare bones. I'm a little less impressed of where it stopped for these interfaces. For example, it built this calendar of what are my upcoming meals, but then you can't click to expand it for whatever reason. It didn't do that. We can prompt that later to improve upon this. Here's my list of recipes. Here's all the ingredients that might go into a recipe, and then my shopping list. So based on where my current meals are, this is what I would need to buy. And then this is the section that it's built to have meals planned across the different days. Something that I've noticed, the MCP is really in favor of starting over. So this and the this week visualization could have probably been one page, but for whatever reason, it decided to split this up into 2 separate pages. And again, none of these it didn't come along with detail pages. That is an additional prompt I would most likely have to do. With that, I'm going to move over into a little bit of background. Again, I don't have my original prompt, but I did everything with Claude. I'm going to close that for full screen. I was trying to, right before this call, add more recipes, and my recipe site is not eligible for web scraping. So I'm going to actually do a whole bunch of copy and paste and hope these images don't screw me over.
What are we making?
I forgot. I just sort of picked a recipe, and I was like, I just need more data in here. Here's one recipe. and then I'm tracking the sources for all of these from all recipes. Okay, hold on. These are things that you should have done before you did a live demo.
This works.
It is
So,
good to see like, what you should do though to like, you know, trim it out and make it more.
As I like was building my original version of this by hand, entering recipes was actually the most annoying part because similar to what Claude did, I had all the recipes set up so that each ingredient line had a defined number field and then what the ingredient is, and then another field for like, is it chopped? Is it minced? Is it whatever the modifier text is? The problem with that is that you couldn't really just copy and paste out of whatever the recipe is. You had to like painstakingly one by one. So I had this other like utility table that you could copy and paste, and then like an automation would parse it up. And that felt annoying to do. So the advantage of having a, like really any chat interface could probably do this is now you could just literally copy and paste, and hopefully it's able to parse this out. So this is my first test of actually doing this workflow for the base that Claude designed, and hoping that it's able to do this correctly. What I'm expecting is that all the ingredients, well, let me go do this from the base actually. I'm expecting one new record here in my recipes, and I'm expecting several new records here for recipe ingredients, and that's where you see the quantity is broken up. And then unit is its own field as well. Prep note would be whether it's minced or diced or chopped or anything like that. And then linked to that recipe. And then it doesn't need to be added to a shopping list because I haven't said I'm making this meal yet. So that's what I'm expecting my output to be. It's really thinking though. So I do know that like there's this extra gunk in there, but I'm fine with it keeping it there because that's what I pasted, right? That's something that I could clean up after the fact.
Yeah.
Or just be more careful when I'm copying and pasting.
But it does highlight, you know, this like data entry is changing, you know, where it's like instead of just filling out a form or entering each item one at a time, this is the new way of data entry.
Yeah, I had before I had like the web clipper or similar sort of products that when I would go to the website and then kind of like manually move stuff over. This, if it works, should be easier to do. But now I'm questioning whether or not it's faster to do because it is.
Yeah.
We're live. Come on now.
Yeah, and you're on Sonnet.
Is it like looking at what you already have to make sure it doesn't add duplicate ingredients? Like, I'm wondering
Who
if
knows?
Creating.
So let's look at what it's actually doing. I want to expand this, and I don't know if it's going to let me on the web version. So what is helpful is that usually whatever client you're using allows you to like click and see the actual call it's sending out to whatever platform you're using, in this case Airtable, and that kind of helps you check along the way of if you happen to know that, well, that's not the table that I want to edit, then you're able to like stop it before it got too far. It claims that it's complete, so I'm going to look, and would you look at that, it does appear to be complete. So just for visual sake, I'm going to group this. This looks just about right to me. I, of course, didn't memorize that recipe, but salt and black pepper to taste, that makes sense. And then something that also differs from how I originally did this, I had the like name be a formula field, which is similar to what they've done here, the summary, which is adding all of these fields together. But they've also kept like a loosey-goosey field for, I guess, a more human readable version. So the difference between 0.5 and half onion, it's just easier to read that way. My base did this a little bit differently, using a very long find and like replace thing for all like the common divisions you would have for food. So I replaced 0.5 with 1/2 and 0.25 with 1/4 and so on and
Which
so
is more
forth.
robust, because if you ever change the quantity, it won't update that line item.
Exactly. So, not to brag, but I thought about this 6 years ago and I figured it out. But some of these things are like, am I going to be looking at this table ever? No. So these are the things that you contend with. Usually what you want to do is you want to be like on a detail page for the recipe, so you could see all of the instructions, which, just so you're aware, it goes here, versus, looking at each of these tables individually. You wouldn't really interact with this base from the base. You would do it from the interface. So as we're kind of playing around, I want to like take note of the things that I would tweak. This, I would have it as rich text, so that this is formatted as like numbers. I'm just going to double check, and it doesn't have enable rich formatting on. And this kind of gets into the area of what can't the MCP do. I did some previous testing with a different base that was a little bit more complicated, and it's able to do formulas and roll-ups and lookups, which surprised me, because before you couldn't do that with the API, but you can do it with the MCP. But what it can't do is it can't do conditional roll-ups or conditional lookups. It'll build the roll-up for you, but you have to go in and then add the condition to it. For whatever reason, that part of the settings is not exposed via the MCP. So there's going to be some of that probably all over the place. Some of these fields are going to have some of their settings locked off so that you can only edit them by going back into Airtable. And with that, I'm going to try and see. Make the instructions field in the recipes table rich text formatting. I'm just going to see if it can do that.
Yeah. I don't know if you can. I remember chatting with it to ask it like what fields it could and couldn't create. And I thought it told me that it couldn't do roll-up fields.
It absolutely can now do roll-up fields.
Okay.
That might have been in the like recent batch of updates that they did to the MCP last week. So it straight up told me that it can't do it. So after we verify that it can't do stuff, I'm going to go back and actually do the thing. So I'm going to do this, and then, what is it? Control Shift 9, 8, that one. So I don't know. Hopefully the next time it parses out instructions, it would do this as rich formatting. And then part of your prompt is probably going to be, this uses Markdown, or it can use Markdown, I should say. You would probably tell Claude, this field, when you're populating it, use Markdown or something to that effect. And then it would now come with the numbers nice and neat. So to test whether or not I've hallucinated about whether or not it could do a roll-up, I'm just going to see. So add a roll-up to the recipes table that gives the latest date the recipe was made. It should be able to figure that out itself, but I'm going to say from the meal recipes table. It's a lot of waiting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And these are the kinds of things of like when you're doing adjustments to a base like this, sometimes it will be faster if you just do it yourself. But making sweeping changes or a lot of changes in quick succession, it will be faster for AI to do it. So it's sometimes it's a judgment call. It's good to know what it can do, but it's also like sometimes just go in there and do it yourself. So it was able to make this roll up, right? But this is what I was referring to. It can't do this setting here, only include, I've tried that before and it told me it couldn't do it. As it did it, it added a description, which I cannot stress enough, so helpful. I don't know if that's instructions from the MCP just in general, or if it's Claude specifically, but in all of my tests, it will add descriptions to things that probably should have a description. Like the notes and instructions fields don't have a description, but you shouldn't need to describe what those are, right? Those are simple enough. But some of these other fields, I think it's pretty good at knowing when to be descriptive. And it saves me the headache of trying to document this later down the line.
Yeah.
And with that, I think I want to start improving what these interfaces are. So I did not publish this interface. Claude made the interfaces and published them themselves. There was something about a limitation of not publishing interfaces, but I could be wrong. I think it could publish brand new interfaces just fine, but it may be like automations where it can't publish changes to an interface. That I'm going to test right now because here's a published interface and I'm about to request changes for it. So ideally, if I'm using this in my day-to-day, I would look at the this week page, and I would want to click on a meal that I'm trying to make, and I would want this to open up a detail page that lists all of the recipes I'm going to make for that meal. And then I want to be able to click on every recipe and see, well, what are the instructions? What are the ingredients? All of that good stuff. That's not in here yet. I want to see what Claude and the MCP can do to make that more straightforward for me. So let's just see. Improve the interfaces by allowing users to click into a record detail for recipes and meal recipes. I'm leaving it open-ended so that it can decide for itself how to design the page. I want to see what it does first and then tweak along the way. If this were for a real project, I would be very descriptive of like, I need these fields visible, I need these fields editable, this should come first, blah, 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 blah. Now, it says that it can't. I'm surprised. I was expecting it to be able to do this. So let's just read through what it can't do. This is one I can't do through the tools I have access to. The Airtable integration here only lets me create new pages and read existing interface data. There's no tool available for me editing an existing page's layout, like enabling blah, 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 blah. And it keeps telling me to do stuff myself, which is great at the beginning and then starts to get very annoying at the end because it's like, well, I want you to do it. That's why I asked. So I think this is what I was misremembering.
Okay.
It absolutely can publish, but it can't edit an existing page, which is a weakness that they should consider.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking through the tool list and there's no update page, but there is an update automation. So they built it for automations.
Yeah, and interfaces has been part of the MCP for longer. Like there's been recent improvements to what it can do for interfaces, but it was able to like read records from an interface long before it could do anything with an automation. So that's why I'm a little taken aback. So because I don't use this thing yet or at all, I'm going to tell it to create a new page with that in mind. make sure that the detail pages are.
So you get one shot to get it right, and you
Yeah.
gotta go in manually.
So the real problem with this is that, like, if you've bookmarked or you've sent links to specific interface pages, those pages aren't going to work anymore because they're about to be deleted. You know what I mean? So this is fine in a lot of cases, but it's also deeply annoying in a lot of other cases. So I would hope that this is a fast follow for them to make the ability to edit an existing page, even if it can't make every single type of edit, because interfaces are nowadays a little bit more complicated than when they started, but being able to do something to an existing page without having to start over, that'd be great. Again, a very loosey-goosey prompt. I just want to see what it's able to do, what it attempts to do on the first pass, and then we're probably going to be tweaking as we go manually since it can't edit a page in the first place. And while it's doing this sort of thinking, Allie and Dan, is there anything you would like me to test the MCP for?
Now, did we talk about what on the interface side, what page types it can or can't do? Can it do all page types?
I believe I haven't tried to make a custom page type, and I haven't tried to make blank either. That would be a good test, I think. I haven't seen it do overview either. I've seen it do dashboard and any of like the full page visualizations, except for custom, I guess. And it does record review. So overview, blank, and custom are the three that I don't have proof of whether or not I could do that. So I could make that my next prompt of make a blank page, and I wonder if it'll interpret that correctly.
Yeah.
And then make an overview. It should be able to do overview. I'd be surprised if it didn't, which is the kiss of death in Airtable. So, okay, let's just see. It says it was created, recipe details and meal recipe details. Where?
It might not be published.
What?
Right. It asked you if you wanted to publish.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. So I see what it does. I think it thinks, and we covered this, was it last episode, of like, this is a detail page. But that's not what I meant. I liked the calendar. I thought that was logical of a design choice that, like, week by week, I want to click on the day that I'm making the meal. What I wanted was to click this thing and then open up the recipe. And then, I guess this is kind of what I asked for. So I'm mad, but I'm not mad at the same time. And then this one, I feel like I would do recipe ingredients a little bit differently. I probably would have made that like a roll-up field or something, so it just doesn't take up that much space. But this is fine, I think, overall. These are all the fields I would expect to see. I don't know, I would maybe break this stuff up into a section up at the top, but that's sort of like nitpicking. It was able to make the 2 pages I asked for in not the way I thought it was going to make. And that could come down to prompt. But I do wonder if it is able to make detail pages, like a literal detail page and not record review.
Right. I wonder if you asked it to make a list, like, say, could you make a new list layout interface page with a detail screen turned on?
Okay, so I'm saying enable click into record detail, which I think is it's either the exact language or it's pretty close to what the actual feature is called when you're editing on your own in an interface. I want to do this and then also create one overview page and one blank page. And let's just see. And while we're waiting, just so everyone's aware, at the top of the hour, it's 9 a.m. for me, another time for most other people probably. There's a Reddit AMA with one of the, I want to say, product owners at Airtable. And there's some good questions in there. I wrote a question that's basically me listing stuff that's inconsistent about Airtable, which, you know,
I love that.
I'll take any opportunity to say stuff's not consistent across the platform. One of the things that I pointed out, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, group and sort have the same icon only on the record review page, and it drives me crazy.
I've never noticed that.
That's funny.
They use the wrong icon. It's been like that for 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
So my comment is the one that says that and a bunch of other stuff. Some of them are actually more important, but this one I threw in there to be petty. Like, while I'm at it, I might as well talk about this madness. So is it, what did it just do? Did it go? Recipes list. Okay, here it is. No, you can't. No, it's not opening a record detail page. Let's see. I don't think it could do detail pages.
I don't think it can.
You can't do interesting.
Well, this is also incorrect. Clicking a row on a list page opens a record detail panel by default, so no extra config was needed there. That's not true.
No.
Yeah.
So Airtable, I've detected a flaw.
Yeah.
I think the instructions that I actually don't know where that misconception is coming from. I would expect the MCP to just say, because it's been right about all the other things it couldn't do, which is why this is throwing me through such a loop. When it can't do something, from my experience, it will say exactly where you need to go into Airtable to make that fix. But this is saying something that is not true, which is, oh, it just does that. No, it doesn't. It works the exact same way as Grid. So.
Looking at the tool list for the MCP, so you can tell they took their learnings because they implemented interfaces first and then recently automations. You can tell with automations they've learned some lessons because they actually have a tool endpoint that's get automation instructions that will then tell the client, but they don't have that for interfaces.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why your AI model is just figuring that out somewhere else.
Yeah, you're referring to the one I've highlighted on screen, and they should absolutely continue on and add that to interfaces. Now, I haven't really had any problem with creating or editing tables, creating editing fields, etc. But interfaces and automations are more complicated than those, and so I think they both warrant that type of like dedicated instruction tool.
Yeah.
Well, that's disappointing because I really wanted to test that, but that's okay.
But it didn't do and it didn't do the.
Oh right, yeah, it can't. So
can't do overview.
Yeah, remember 3 minutes ago when I said I would be surprised if it couldn't do overview, but that's the kiss of death in Airtable.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Omni can, because I feel like when I've done Omni to create stuff, it always puts in an overview page.
Well, let's just just to prove if that is in fact true, add an overview interface page. I'm just going to say that links to the other pages in the interface. Generally speaking, Omni can do more than both the API and the MCP can do. The things that Omni can do, I don't know if that's well documented anywhere. Like the MCP has this now pretty robust documentation section where it lists every single tool that it can do. Omni, to my knowledge, does not have that anywhere, so you kind of just have to know what it can do and what it can't. There are some help documents that imply stuff that it can do, but it's not an exhaustive list.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that it says dashboard because that's the name of a different type of page.
Oh,
See,
Dashboard. Created an overview dashboard.
when I say I don't like Omni, this is what I mean.
doesn't understand.
They have a page called overview, unless I'm wrong. Maybe I got the name wrong. Let's just see.
No. You're right. It's called overview.
Yeah, would you look at that?
That's funny.
Omni.
It did what it thinks you told it to do.
But I told it to link to the other pages. This is not linking to the other pages. This is, you know,
That's a nice dashboard view.
You know what? It's color coded.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be all that negative, as negative as I could be. But my goodness, that is not what I said to do.
One thing I do like that Omni does when it creates these dashboards is it puts the description on all the charts, which
Yes.
I find very helpful. Something I always forget to do, and then I struggle with like, what's the clearest way to write this?
Yeah, I think a lot of the most I'm going to get out of like Omni and some of the other like AI tools that you could use with Airtable is going to be go back and document stuff. That's what I'm going to be using it the most for, to be perfectly honest.
Except it can't update those interface pages.
Okay, now hold on.
Do it again.
Omni. I want to send just this clip to whatever team deals with Omni and be like, what did I do wrong? Surely I've made a mistake somewhere along the way.
It didn't even do anything. It just told you, here's your page.
Yeah.
It's the dichotomy of interacting with chat widgets and AI just in general is sometimes you'll be like, well, no, what I really wanted you to do is this. And it'll be like, you're absolutely right.
Right.
That annoys me. And then sometimes it'll do what Omni just did and it'll be like, no, I'm right. I'm like, no, you're not. That's not what I said.
Yeah.
I love Claude. If you like read what it's thinking to itself, at least for me, it's like every other paragraph starts with actually. He's like, actually, I need to do this. Actually, I should do this first. Actually, I need to think about this first. I'm like, that sounds pretty human.
Can Omni update the page?
Let's just see. Update this oh so precious dashboard to include I'm just gonna say another number element at the top. What do I want to summarize?
Shopping cart you could do.
Yeah, okay, that has items in the shopping list.
Cool.
Now, what if we made an overview page based on this prompt? What if it's the opposite?
Well, I feel like it doesn't keep the context of the chat very easily. Like I was prompting it to I wanted it to add a field to a custom interface that it had made. And I said, can you add this field to the screen you just made? And it went in, it like opened my data layer and was like, you want me to add the field here? And I was like, no, the field already exists. I want it in the dashboard. It's wild what it gets triggered on.
Okay, it seems it was added. Okay, so this I'm less mad about because I can see why it did that. I mentioned shopping list, and that's a different table than this one up here, and because you can only have one source per group, fine. But it can update interface pages, so that is a difference between Omni and the MCP. But nobody can make an overview page, it would seem.
Try one more time. Create a new page where the type is overview.
Create a new page where the type is overview. Do not create a dashboard.
Come on, Omni. I have faith in you.
I don't. I've been burned before.
It's doing something.
And before this finishes, why? Why?
Wild.
The thing that I like about the MCP, and again, I've only used Claude, so I don't know if it's entirely coming from Claude and the model I'm using, or if it's coming from the MCP itself. When it can't do something, it says, I can't do this. Here's how you do it yourself. Omni is like, I can do everything. And whatever you just said doesn't matter. I'm going to do something else and pretend that's what you told me to do.
Or it'll pretend it can't do it, even though it can. It's just because you used the wrong word in your prompt. It'll be like, I can't do that. It's silly.
Yeah, so we've got about a couple more minutes before we're done. I want to find that Reddit AMA Airtable, just because there is a question on it that asks what's the difference between the MCP and Omni. I feel like I'm going to add a comment to this and be like, watch this clip. And it's not going to answer your question entirely because there are things that Omni can do that the MCP cannot. There's no real roadmap Airtable has, so we don't know what they're adding to the MCP in the near term or long term. The announcement post, though, I will call out, says that script actions and automations is coming. They are working on it, so that is definitively eventually, but we don't know when. So Omni can do things that the MCP can't, but it messes up sometimes in ways that I haven't seen the MCP do, because when you're working with the MCP, based on how you've set it up on your own account, you're able to say, don't do this until I approve it. Omni is very gung-ho. It will just sort of do stuff based on your prompt, but it's not going to say, do you want me to do this every single time, like you can configure an MCP connection to do.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
For the automations in the MCP, can it just list them all? And what sort of metadata does it get?
Yeah, this is not exciting because there's only one automation in this space, but I will say list all automations for
You can tell it to give you the raw JSON data that it gets, and then you'll see everything. Yeah.
Cool. I'd love to add it into my like metadata pull to like link it up to the actual fields on a table so I can see it.
So my prompt, list all the automations from the base. I want you to summarize it, but also give me the raw JSON. So it is correct. There is only one. It is live, so that's good. This is very human readable. Great, thank you. And then here are the nodes. So let's look at the structure of what an automation is pulled from the MCP. So it will give you the unique ID of that automation, which is so useful for a lot of things, but we'll get to that later. Whether or not it's live, so deployed equals live. So just so you're aware, some of the like terminology, because automations are an old part of Airtable, long before MCP access, the names of things might not align with what you might think they're named. Just calling that out as you're reading this for the first time. Trigger. So this is one of the objects that can change shape depending on what the trigger is like. So if this were record updated, it wouldn't just be table ID, it would also be which fields. And then if it were record matches condition, you would still see table ID, but you would also see the conditions itself. And then nodes would be each of the steps. So the trigger is separate from the nodes. And then the way that this is structured, depending on the structure of your automation, and let me just pull that up so everyone can refresh themselves on what this looks like. We have one step, and then we have a repeated action. And inside that repeated action, it has one step. So thanks to some relatively recent improvements, you could have a condition group, and then one of those could include a repeating action, or you could have a repeating action like I have, and inside of this, I could have a condition group or a series of condition groups. That is important to sort of remind yourself of how an automation could be structured, and that will help explain how the node output is structured as well. So what is useful, and one of the first times that I can recall, is seeing the filters of anything. In the API, you could get records from a view, but I don't think you can see what that view's filters are. So I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, but with with this output from the automation, you can see, this is my find record step. This is my find record step, and you can see exactly what the filters are. So let me pull up what that is. Airtable. Make this wider. Whatever. There's only one condition where recipe has any of the recipe from the source field. So this, I can kind of understand why they didn't expose this before, but also it's very useful to have this if you want similar business logic elsewhere in your application. You need to make things consistent, and in order to do that, you need to know what the original filters were. So one condition, and this is all the sort of context it needs. So I'm going to work backwards, I guess. Property getter, get the ID from the trigger, and we're looking at this field. So I don't know if I would have been able to ever in a million years guess this is the format that the filters are in. And the more complicated that find record step is, I'm sure this is going to be even longer. It takes about like 30 lines to construct this filter object. Most of those are closing brackets, but you get the idea.
I was thinking next week, why don't we save this for next week? We'll do a deep dive into the automation MCP.
Metadata.
Like this, because we'll talk about some new features next week. So make this a teaser for next week.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to scroll through. That's the rest. It continues on with whatever notes you have. So that's kind of my high level overview of what I was able to explore using the specifically myself. I use Claude, the MCP for Airtable. It's fairly robust. Normally, when I demo new features from Airtable, it's a lot of me complaining about what they didn't do. There are some things that it can't do that are disappointing, but I'm not nearly as disappointed as some of the other releases. I think this is enough of a step forward that there's genuine improvements and things that I can do given what it can do today. Personally, updating automations is more useful for me than updating interfaces because interfaces aren't that hard when when you've experienced and you've built them enough, you can kind of just bang them out really quickly. Automations are tedious to configure, in my opinion. Overall, pretty good. I like that some of the limitations that we've had from the API were resolved. Being able to create roll-ups and lookups and all of those, huge. You can't have them, you can't do a perfect roll-up, in my opinion, which would have the conditional actions and stuff in it, but you can save yourself quite a bit of time with the most recent batch of tools that they have released. And like they said in one of their announcement posts, they're working on some new ones in the future. So fingers crossed that won't take too long. And maybe by the end of the summer, we'll have even more robust MCP integrations with Airtable.
Yeah. Yeah. A key takeaway I get is, especially like on the interface side, it's nice for proof of concept. You're not going to be able to build robust production ready. I don't know how many interface pages you two have built, probably thousands. And I don't think it's ever been perfect the first time.
No.
Never not updated a page.
Yeah, no, never. Not even I can do it perfect on the first time. So not being able to edit, like I said, disappointing, but I'm sure that's coming soon, or I should say it better be coming soon. It'd be crazy if they didn't.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Very true. So, but automation seems a bit more robust. You could probably build out robust automations, especially when code, although that's kind of scary when it gets to scripting and writes those scripts for you.
Honestly, I think that's why they did it last, which I'm not mad about. But the one thing that I actually wanted for scripts, I don't need it to actually update the script. What I wanted to do
I know what you're going to say.
Is this part.
Yes.
This is so tedious and annoying.
Yeah.
And I like to group my input variables together of like, these are all the ones that come out of the recipe table, and these are the ones that come out of the ingredients table.
You can't reorder.
You can't reorder them. It is so tedious setting this up, especially if you're pulling from base structure, which is still somewhat broken because you have to click twice. Why? Because there's two different scroll bars. This is the second I start complaining.
Seriously, if you click, there's a bug too, where if you click on it, you click into a table and you're on the place where you are. And because you said you have to click twice, if you click once on a field by accident and then click on the actual field you want, or on the table and then on a field, it will grab the table ID. So click on like the top one twice, click on the top one quickly, and then field. It's hard to explain how to do it, but like if you accidentally,
I believe you.
Yeah,
because this is like, absolutely bugged, but
it's insane. Like if you don't pay attention, I so often will accidentally click on the table, then accidentally click again, but it doesn't take. And then I click a field, and then it inserts the table ID instead of the field. It's really weird.
I don't need it to update the script. I need it to let me do these inputs. I don't want to do this by hand anymore. Please, for the love of God.
I had a client the other day that didn't know that you could do that and somehow ended up hard coding the field IDs into the value fields and it still
That's how
worked.
we used to have to do it.
Yeah.
But it triggered the dependency checker with just the typed field ID.
Oh,
Interesting.
okay. Okay. Well, then it's not looking for the token. It's looking for the value. That's interesting.
And they used IDs, not names.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just ID.
I think it does that because it's smart enough to know to change it. If you duplicate a base, it goes through and it changes the IDs. So I think it's always scanning for the field IDs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was weird.
Kavan has said this before of like, if you have something that kind of looks like a field or a table ID, Airtable will do that. I'll be like, oh, I need to change it to something else.
Yeah.
And so
I think they changed that because of Kavan. I think Kavan was the one that was like, hey, I duplicated it, but all the IDs are wrong.
Yeah, she's mentioned it more than once because I think it was one of those things that I didn't have to experience, but as soon as Kavan like pointed it out, I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's terrible. Actually, no one should ever have to deal with that.
It used to happen to me a lot more before they introduced the input variables. Yeah.
But yeah, ideally they could just put a chatbot just like to help you create a formula field with the AI. They should just put that underneath those input variables.
Yeah.
That would be ideal.
Let me enter input variables as JSON. Just give me one big JSON and let me type.
Yeah. Yeah, then you could have an AI create that for you too.
Yeah, exactly. And it could work just like, you know, you have this big text box basically, and I could pull in values as like tokens. But I know how to type in JSON format. Let me do that.
Yeah.
Right? This is what I want to do. I want to have one thing. Now this is, I've lost the plot a little bit, but anyway, eventually you'll be able to update scripts via the MCP. And again, for me personally, I just want the experience of putting in input variables to be not so painful. And other than that, pretty good improvements to the MCP. There's a lot that it would speed most people up with, including myself. Like I said, I'm terrible at adding descriptions as I go, so very useful for things like that. Interfaces you might want to do yourself. I didn't get to forms. It can't create a form, but it can submit a form, which is an interesting use case that I think we should probably explore on its own, because one would say, well, why wouldn't you just have it update the table directly? Well, the form, you can enforce a field will either be there or it won't be there based on what you've previously selected. So that to me was the most interesting addition to the MCP. And there's also an undo action. So now if you have Claude create a new record and you're like, oh, actually, no, that record is bad, you can say undo that and it will literally undo the action. It's not deleting the record, it's undoing the action, which is a great addition that is not as like sexy as some of the other ones, but it's a brilliant addition.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, let's do that. Next week's our review the latest, so we'll go deep into that. Maybe we'll play with the Slack integration, see how it differs from other clients, and maybe something else will come out this week we can play with. So awesome. Thank you, Camille, for sharing that and get our insights into building with MCP. We'll be back next week. Everybody have a great week.